This is an introduction to a project I've been working on for a little bit. I've been thinking about it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months is probably the first time I started actually talking about it, fleshing it out in my mind. The concept is an ebook that's supposed to help people like you who are newcomers to fMRI or maybe have like a year or so of experience or maybe want to learn some more advanced stuff, to help them get off the ground and be a resource that you can access anytime, anywhere. So we're keeping this small for a reason. One is just because of scheduling, right? Second, I know all of you, and I get along pretty well with all of you, I hope. And I think it's a pretty good representative sample of grad students and postdocs who are working with fMRI or they want to do fMRI pretty soon. I know that people like Sue and Karthik are going to be starting a project sometime in the next 6 months, and this is designed to help you get off the ground. Okay, so the basic problem is this: how does somebody learn how to do fMRI analysis? Right? I'm sure it's come up at some point. And you have a few options, and the one that comes to mind probably most readily is something like you go take a course, you go somewhere for a workshop. And if that all works out, if you meet all the conditions, it's at the right time, it's in a place that's affordable, you can go there, that's great. It's a great option. You get to meet the professionals, you meet the people who develop whatever software package you're using, could be SPM, FSL, AFNI, and so on. And if you can make that happen, I totally recommend doing that. Now, that being said, there are some major drawbacks. This is one of the reasons why I'm making this thing. Obvious ones are these things can be extremely expensive, right? I think FSL is in New Zealand this year. New Zealand is awesome, probably. I haven't been there, but I've heard it's really gorgeous. But it's really expensive to get there. It takes a long time to get there. You got to pay for travel. You got to pay for hotel. Maybe your lab could float it. Maybe you could apply for a travel grant. But still, the money is a big factor in that. Second, it could take a lot of time, and it could be at a very inconvenient time for you. And so what if you can't make it? It's at a time where you have something else going on, or you're busy, or there's some family thing, and you're screwed, right? And you got to wait an extra year for that to happen, and then you've burned through 20% of your PhD program. That's a huge problem. The third thing is there's usually an application process for one of these things, and they expect you to know things like basic coding or MATLAB or whatever kind of prerequisites they have for you. And maybe you've just started your program, maybe you don't know any of that stuff, and they're not going to accept you if you don't have that basic level of knowledge. That's for design. They don't want to do a lot of remedial stuff during these courses, and so it's totally understandable. But again, this is kind of like a poor get poorer type of deal. So how do you pull yourself up by your bootstraps? How do you get started? How do you get in position to actually take advantage of these things? So you could take a course, you could go to a workshop. The course could be obviously something offered at a university, but some of the same problems. Sometimes it's not offered that year. Instructor takes a sabbatical, gets sick, something like that, and you could be out of luck for another year or so. That's just to show that you could have to travel potentially very far. But this is in a very exotic country, the other side of the world, Australia. So the last option available to most of you is to learn online. So at the very basic, it could just be Googling something like fMRI analysis. How do I learn it? Something like that. There are some systematic courses. I believe there's Tor Wager and Martin Lindquist. They have a Coursera thing. If you've seen that, I think it's available on YouTube now. A couple other things you could do to learn online. There are actual books, PDFs that have been converted and put online. So one of them, again, is by Lindquist and Wager, and the Coursera is complementary to that. There's also a book by Poldrack, Nichols, and Mumford, which I think you can find available online, or you can purchase the hardcover. And so for most people, this is the most practical option. If you don't have the time, the money to do any of these other things, learning online is by far the easiest, cheapest thing to do. Now, that being said, some of these online resources, like the books, some of the documentation, what I've found is they don't have practical exercises. For you to actually see what the data looks like, know how it's supposed to look on your computer, and what kind of results you're supposed to get. Out of all the stuff that is online, so the Martin Lindquist Wager thing, there's Mumford Brain Stats, and then there's me, right? And yeah, what?
Maybe you want to phrase this also in the context of the Michigan fMRI course, so that
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like this is like completely remote from.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So another option, and that's a good point, is the Michigan fMRI course. So this is kind of like these other workshops that are also provided. But this isn't just for us. This is for people, say, in all corners of the world. And the Michigan fMRI course is one option, but they may not, again, be able to do it for whatever reason. And again, they also do, I think they accept only something like 10% of the applications. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so the online courses, I have videos. I'm one option, but even then, I'm not totally happy with that, because as it was starting, it was mostly kind of ad hoc, right? Just whatever problem I happened to come across, I made a video for it and put it up. So in order to try to make this more systematic and to put some order on it, I started using something called ReadTheDocs. Has anybody heard of this? Anybody used it? Okay. So MR-Tricks, for example, their documentation is on ReadTheDocs.
Yeah, super nice.
Yeah. And I like that format a lot. I'm going to spend most of the time here actually just showing you what I have so far and how ReadTheDocs is set up. So why this platform exactly? So John, as you probably know, it's tight, it's coherent. The way it's structured, it makes it very easy to cross-reference things and to get to certain chapters. What I like is to get to the information you need as quickly as possible, right? So that's another advantage of something like ReadTheDocs over something like a textbook, even though it has an index and things like that. ReadTheDocs makes it a lot quicker to get to what you need. It also, just by design, it kind of forces you to make the pages short and concise, which I also like, and I think would be helpful for people who are trying to learn this. And for me, at least, this can also be used in conjunction with workshops and lectures. I just started using ReadTheDocs a few weeks ago. Actually made my own template, started adding content to it, because I was at an ASL workshop here a few weeks ago, and they had a ReadTheDocs walkthrough for this particular tool they were presenting, and it was extremely clear and it was easy to use. I have it as a reference, and I thought it would be a great thing to adapt for this particular thing I have in mind. Also, it interfaces with GitHub, which, as I'm able to put more scripts on there, it's easy to reference those things as well. And everything is really in a convenient one-stop place. Okay, so before I actually show you what's on this, here's my basic outline I have in mind. And I'm going to be asking all of you to actually try this thing out, right? So it's still in the rough draft phase. I have a couple modules completed. There's like a basic intro to Unix. There's a section on installing the package on your computer, and then there's just a few steps of actual, downloading the fMRI data, looking at it, and fossilize. And just so you know, this is based on listen to me, FSL. As it expands, we'll be bringing in things like AFNI, SPM, other things, free surfer, things like that. Even though there's documentation already on there, this is more to show you how to do these things practically and show them how to do it on your computer. So the first thing is going to be downloading the software. In this case, I just have FSL so far. Second is going to be learning the basics of Unix. So has anybody here not used a command line or doesn't have any Unix experience? Okay, so everybody here knows how to use Unix. That's great. But in the case that somebody's totally new, say first-year PhD student, totally new to programming in Unix, this is designed to help them get started with that. And then the actual fMRI short course, it's start to finish analyzing an fMRI data set. And this is actual data from an actual study that was published some years ago. It's a simple data set. It's a flanker task. I've used it a couple times in the past year for various workshops. I like it because it's easy, right? There are two conditions. There's incongruent, congruent. No surprise, what you should find. We know that there's going to be an effective incongruency in the brain. So we're trying to replicate that start to finish. Pretty simple, but the concepts you should be able to apply to any data set of your choosing because contrasts are used all the time. And lastly, there will be exercises in each of these sections to increase your skill, make you more fluent, and develop your understanding. That's the goal. So let me break out and show you what this thing actually looks like. If you go to, I gotta change this slug right here, but it's right now it's andytemplate.readthedocs.io. I want to change this to Andy's Brain Book.readthedocs, but when I was first screwing around, I just chose Andy Template. Okay, everybody have it? All there? Yeah, so this is the basic format. It's still under construction. Been working on it for a couple weeks now. But let me just give you a brief overview of what's going on. So here's the landing page. And each module is going to be under these headers. So, installation. There's the Unix primer for people who need it. fMRI short course. Ignore ROI analysis. I'm just throwing stuff up on there. And then a glossary, which is also being added to right now. So if you click on install, this is an example of how one of the typical pages is set up. Okay. One caveat I want to throw out there at the outset is this is very biased towards Mac users, which may be unfortunate for a lot of people. I have not actually done an analysis on a Windows machine. That being said, with something like FSL, they do have a walkthrough for how to install Cygwin, which is like a Unix emulator. I want you to try it out. If you do have a PC, let me know how that thing works. I don't have a PC I can try it on, so unfortunately I can't tell you. So this, because there are already very good, detailed walkthroughs, I've just linked to those, to the main one that we're using. If you do need additional help, for a lot of these I have links to videos that I've made before, which will, break out and it will go to one of these videos that I've made on my YouTube channel. So if you need to, you can go through this, follow along, and it will show you on my computer, what I would do to install something like FSL. So I'm hoping that will help you out. One really useful trick that I found recently on these YouTube videos, any video you watch, is if you press the left and right arrow keys, you can go up and down by 5 seconds. For something like this, it's very useful if you need to get to a certain section very quickly. And as you'll see in other videos, I do include a table of contents with timestamps for each of the major sections that you need to get to. So that'll make it quicker for you to get to what you need. Plumber charges $230,000 for black toilet. That is crazy. Why is that recommended for me? I don't know. Okay, let's see here. Oh, another little caveat with this Read the Docs thing. Anytime you click on a link, it doesn't open it up in a new tab. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. It's based on Sphinx. I'm trying to learn how to do that, but just be aware it will take over the current window. Okay, so this is the page I recommend people start with. Actually, get the thing you need. So next steps, if you've never used a command line before, click next to begin the use tutorials. Otherwise, skip to the fMRI short course. I'm going to briefly just walk through some of the stuff I have for Unix right now. So the basic thing is for each of these modules, there's a summary page kind of telling you what exactly we're dealing with. It'll include illustrations where appropriate. It has these call-outs, notes, warnings, and so on, to direct your attention to something that I think might be particularly important. So for example, here, we'll tell you about Cygwin, about Unix emulators, in case you need those. And again, with a lot of these, there are links to videos, in case you need kind of a step-by-step thing on your own computer. So this is the basic format. Again, on your own, I'm encouraging you to read through this. If anything is unclear or ambiguous, or there's a typo, or something's just not right, there's an error, I'd like to know about it. Okay, and then here's my example of some exercises. And just to okay, so as it goes to one of these, usually in these show more boxes, shut up. In these show more boxes, there'll be timestamps for each of these things. So let's say you already know what CDLS is, but you don't know what tab completion is. So you click on that, and then
type CD-EXP, and then press tab.
so you're at that section in case you just need to get to that thing quickly. Makes sense, this basic structure I have. There's not like a video for everything. I mean, that would kind of be overkill, but where it's appropriate to supplement what's going on, especially for a newcomer, I'm trying to come at it from their angle. It's there for you. Okay, so this is all the Unix stuff. Again, I only have a few things here so far. And this particular Unix module, when I have all the separate chapters ready, it's designed to complement what we're going to be doing with the actual fMRI short course. So this Unix is not comprehensive, but it's going to go up through for loops and scripting, which is, in my experience, most of what a fMRI person uses. At least I haven't used anything much beyond that. That stuff, you can automate your analyses, and that's mostly what we need to do. Okay, this one's still under construction. Okay, so moving on to the short course. And again, you'll see in the sidebar, very easy to navigate between these different things, so you can stay oriented. Same thing, introduction, giving you an overview of what we're doing. This is kind of the finished product, what we should see after we've analyzed the entire sample data set, start to finish. And to demonstrate how I like how this cross-references things, as I'm building up this glossary, as I'm using terms which would be kind of, say, too much or kind of tedious to expand upon in that particular section, you simply click on the link and it'll give you like a fuller illustration of that particular topic or concept. So it's still being fleshed out, but that's the basic idea, to keep everything very integrated. My approach is not to cover MRI physics in depth because I feel like I forget it every year. And then I learn it at the fMRI course, and then I forget it again because I never use it. I go to these fMRI lab meetings every week, and they're constantly talking about the physics, and I'm just like, because I never use them. So there's some things I recommend that people can check out. People may disagree with me, but aside from like a very basic understanding of the chain of how we actually get the signal that we see at the very end, I don't think it's necessary for the newcomer to know MRI physics. I don't really know it at this particular point, and I'm okay. So I think they'll be okay too. Let's see here. The actual data set we'll be downloading is on the OpenNeuro website. I've included a link to it. So if you don't know, OpenNeuro is an online repository for imaging data. I think it's only a couple years old, but I think it's a brilliant idea. So anybody who publishes a paper, even if you don't publish a paper, I think you can still upload your data, and it's very useful for us because, one, we don't need to collect it. It's no skin off our backs if we totally screw up analyzing this stuff. We can butcher it as much as we want, and it doesn't matter because it's already been collected. It's not ours. We just do whatever we want with it. It's a very simple data set, like I mentioned. It's flanker, 2 conditions, very simple. We just take the contrast between the two, see where there's a difference in brain activity. And everything here is in something called BIDS format, which again is very useful for doing a standardized course because everything is going to be in such a way that when we actually create the scripts, they're going to be very adaptable between different studies. So I recommend that people, when you're collecting your own data, you also format it like this. It's very simple. The anatomicals in the anat directory, the functional data and the onsets are in the func directory, and so on. You have diffusion data, you add another directory, DWI, and so on. Pretty easy. And I explain more about this structure in the actual tutorials. So far what I have right now, also overview of the flanker task, how this thing is set up, why we should see what we're seeing. And what I've stopped so far is the actual looking at the data part. So once you get up to here, what you should be able to do, unless you have a Windows machine maybe, is download everything, be able to look at it and fossilize, and start to get some idea what this thing looks like and how you should start to interact with it. Okay, any questions so far about any of this? Okay, pretty straightforward. I just have a couple more slides really before we talk about some housekeeping stuff. Let's see here. All right, so I've already mentioned this, but what I'm asking of everybody here is, I'd like feedback. Just again, you know where the link is. It's pretty easy to just walk through this stuff, just everything that I have done so far. I want your feedback on, again, if there are any errors, if anything is unclear, if there's something you would like to see that's not there, let me know, especially for the people who are totally new to this. I really want to know if this makes sense. The model is, keep improving, iterating it. It's very easy to update this stuff. Everything on this ReadTheDocs is actually controlled through my GitHub repository. So I update the things on GitHub, and it updates a few seconds later on ReadTheDocs. And I think that you all might be able to send pull requests on GitHub as well. So if you have a request to change something in the actual code, you can do it, and I can accept or deny it. But that's an option for you. The overall goal, which I want to restate, is once you learn these concepts, that you can apply them to other studies. So either another study that you download from OpenNeuro that's more relevant to what you do. It could be emotion, it could be development, clinical, what have you. And then, once you actually collect your own data set, you can apply this same thing here. It's going to include more things like, how do you run simulations to make sure your study is probably going to work, what kind of effect sizes you're looking at, how to make figures, how to do ROI analysis. I really want to cover everything, but I'm starting small at this particular point just to see if people can actually use it to analyze a simple data set. So all that being said, I want to ask you all, how often would everybody like to meet about this? So the format I have in mind is if we meet, say, every week, a couple weeks, however often we decide, I could give like a short presentation on a certain section that I want to focus on, like say pre-processing. So all the documentation would be up there. I might give like a short lecture, PowerPoint with some illustrations, animations, and then you kind of go forth and apply that to that particular section if you think that might be useful. This is to help you all learn. It's not, if you feel like you understand this pretty well, you're under no obligation to come or help out or anything. But for those who are trying to learn it, I'd like to see how effective it actually is. So just an informal poll, every week or every 2 weeks, who would want to meet every week around this time? Nobody. Okay, that's fine. Every 2 weeks? 2 weeks sounds good? Is that a good amount of time? Yeah.
A little bit on what you would want us to look at between those weeks, because it's
Yeah.
a bit more involved.
That's true, yeah.
A little bit more time.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I've considered putting something like, here's about how long this particular section will take you. It's like 30 minutes, an hour, maybe 2 hours. For now, it's really just getting familiar with it and downloading it onto your machine. So how about, for now, and we can change this obviously, for now up until say June, or when does the semester end? I don't know actually.
It's like pretty soon.
Really? Oh my God. Okay.
I was when they're like finals in a couple weeks or something. I was like, what?
Okay.
3 weeks of class left.
It ends
It-
on the 21st or 22nd.
Okay. Well, let me rephrase this. Is anybody leaving before June 1st?
I'm having a baby.
Oh, well, congratulations.
It doesn't answer the question.
But probably not that
Oh, I understand. But the thing is, when you're recovering, you can still do this from the, no, I understand that. But everybody else isn't going anywhere for break or anything. Okay. Prelims. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, okay. Well, for right now, let's plan every couple weeks. I'll send out updates to this particular group, and my goal is for just the basic, start to finish analysis of this single data set and the Unix tutorials, is to have a really solid draft done by June. I think that'll keep me on track. And if this seems to be a good resource, let's just run with it. I'd love to hear your ideas. If you really want to get involved, again, you can edit the actual code. If you don't mind learning Sphinx, you think you have something to contribute. I don't know other modalities. You may know something about diffusion or structural analysis that I don't, and you want to write a module and put it on there. It's still going to say Andy's brain book, but you'll unfortunately, but you'll definitely get credit for whatever you contribute. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope this helps. I'm looking forward to seeing whether it actually works, and we will see how this goes. So thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. I think it's good. I mean, when I was learning diffusion, I feel like I spent so much time scouring like message boards.
Yeah,
So much.
yeah.
Which is like, you just wish that it was compiled in a reasonable format. But
Right.
yeah, so I think it would be really helpful. And the other thing is, like so you're talking about you have to go to workshops and stuff like that. But imagine people who are in like maybe like high school or in undergrads, like nowadays they go online and they learn how to code and stuff like that.
Exactly.
You just learn how to do neuroimaging too.
Yeah.
There's no reason why not.
Yeah. One of the first, when I was actually making these videos in the first, something's going on over there. Yeah, we should go over there. When I was actually making this in the first place, I went to a small liberal arts college in southern Minnesota, and we're far away from the nearest scanner, right? And you see some of these pictures in, say, like a cognitive neuroscience class or something, and it looks cool. And wouldn't it be great for people who are in that situation, that say college undergrad, you're not at an R1 university, but you can still learn the basics and you still know what's involved. And then you're in great position if you want to go to graduate school or some other program.
Yeah,
I think this would,
you're an issue there and stuff. I mean, that's the exact kind of person you want in your lab, right?
yeah. So we were all born too late, but we can help the next generation of people.
Are you linking to other sources? I
Yeah.
think I saw that. So.
Yeah, where appropriate. If somebody has already explained this in greater detail, and I think it's already explained well, I just link to them.
Right.
It's supposed to be as streamlined as possible, and I'm just adding in content where, either I think it hasn't been explained at this particular angle, or I think I can do it better.
So bringing together is also very
Yeah.
important. But I'm thinking about some things related to stats or
Yeah.
that are
Good. Yeah.
out there. And
Right.
people kind of agree that that's a good way of
Yeah.
might ease your work.
Yeah, I've thought about that too. The way that I'm, for example, structuring the Unix tutorials, there are already Unix tutorials out there, but this is specifically geared towards people who are going to do neuroimaging. These are commands that I've found are most useful and most widely used for somebody who's doing an fMRI analysis. And so it's geared towards them in mind. Like, let's say you don't know Unix, but you need to use it to analyze this data set. Here's what you need to know. And same thing for the statistics. We're not going to be covering everything, obviously. But they need to know why they need to know certain statistics to actually interpret these data sets and how to set up models.
Yeah, which I think, so,
Yeah.
I think learning is kind of like a spiral process, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not the one who came up with that, that's for sure. But so this idea of like, okay, so there's no reason why a high school kid shouldn't learn brain imaging. But then, do they need to know anything about stats first or regression?
Right.
I mean, what brain imaging can you do if you don't know the basics of regression? So I think that's something to think about. How much you want to present them, but at the same time, how much of that is like authentic learning? Because
Yeah.
right, is it just this is the bullet.
Point and click. Yeah. Yeah.
But then, do I know what I'm doing? And then, do I know when things go wrong?
Yeah.
That's
I'm trying to address that in part with some of the exercises, and maybe I'll put an answer key or something at some point and say, like, okay, hotshot. So like, you're able to push the buttons. That's great. But what if I'm asking you to, conceptually, it's like it could be something as basic as, well, how are you going to take the opposite of that contrast, or how are you going to take an interaction? You don't know what an interaction is? Like, see this little primer and how you do that. And can you actually apply that? So I think that's going to be the test. With any of these practicals, I've seen them on the FSO website and the AFNI website. They kind of do the same thing where they'll say, do this, do this, do this, do this, and it's easy enough to do. But have you actually learned anything? You can't actually test that unless you have them do something where it's not totally guided.
Yeah, and I agree that it's very useful to have something like this in one place, links and everything. But then, also the links should offer the opportunity for people, if they want to go in depth on some issue.
Right. That's a good idea.
And then
yeah.
it could be links even to listservs that happen to treat one problem in a lot of detail. Because as painful as it is in looking through all those, that's how we learn.
It is true. Yeah.
I don't think there is a substitute, an easy substitute for that, trying to get at the bottom of things and right.
Understood. Yeah.
So if there's something that we know that kind of helped us in figuring out some concept, even if it's on a listserv, that could be a link. Now, that might expire or might be broken in a few years, but I don't know. It's just that I think using the power of internet is also linked to this. That you can get the most relevant information that you can find.
Yeah. So are you suggesting something like how to find out answers to things that come up?
That would be something, or even this issue is treated more in depth here.
Yeah.
And that could be somebody else's blog, or it could be like a listserv item. If you want to that path. Or you can take it all upon yourself and clarify all these things. But I'm thinking about the cost benefits. If you want to make it more like an open thing,
right?
So that it's it provides the basic information, but also offers its links to other locations where you think people have treated that subject sufficiently well.
Yeah.
Or you want to integrate all that information into make it yours.
Yeah. I definitely, it's not practical to explain every possible thing that could come up. Something I've done recently in the past year or so is I've tried making videos where that address a common misunderstanding or a common problem that keeps popping up on these message boards. Like the number of actual unique problems is actually, I don't think it's that large. For example, say somebody's trying to do an ROI analysis. Like they need they have a mask, they have their data, they're trying to extract from that mask. And one error that comes up all the time that I've found is their mask isn't resampled to their data. So it's not the same dimensions, not the same voxel size, and throws an error. So, having something where you say, okay, here's an important concept. If you're ever using two images, it could be an ROI analysis, it could be for something else, they need to be resampled to each other. Like you need to understand that concept. And then maybe put some tags in there where if they search for something like ROI error or something like that, that's one of the things that will pop up. Yeah.
I think even just having, like, you going through and making sure that the links are actually helpful. Because I feel like when you're searching for like solutions to things, you go to so many different sites where it's like, oh, this is not a very clear explanation. I'm trying to make sense to the person who wrote it. But even just having like a place to go and look for links to like things that are already discussed elsewhere, but that would just be good explanations to them. Is really helpful.
Yeah. That brings to mind, there's this one website, it's like MindHive, MIT. It's a good one. I don't know who wrote it, but it addresses a lot of concepts in fMRI analysis pretty well.
But it's a bit outdated. Right?
It is, yeah.
Maintained it for like years.
That is true, yeah. But I remember when I was first starting, that did help clarify a lot of things because it seemed to anticipate some of the questions you would have, and then it would explain. And I appreciated that. So if we can find things like that, it would be really useful. The Omnitrix message boards are very good too.
Yeah, I think those guys spend a lot of time on there.
Yeah, I have like a dozen people. Yeah.
And they write like essays in response.
Yeah, I know. That must be just their full-time thing, right?
Those are the guys
really?
Those are the actual like guys that made the software.
Yeah.
They might have a better funding structure in England.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's better than the snarky one-liners you get from other.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I don't know
They
if you
give
guys.
answers out there that are like, this has already been answered.
Yeah. So we got to be that person.
Yeah, you gotta get there. That's
Yeah.
the thing, right? And like, if you're at that level where you
People assume you know that.
and, like, there's no repercussions, that's when you know you made it.
Exactly. I'm writing all this down. All right, these are good things to keep in mind. As it develops, we'll be incorporating those things for sure. Yeah. For your one-time investment of $5,000, you could be on the ground floor as this thing is starting. Unlimited upside potential. I'm serious. Okay, thank you all so much. Good luck. We'll plan on, does this time work? I'm going to see if I can get this same room. In 2 weeks? Okay, then I'll send something out again. And yeah, in the meantime, just look at what's up there so far. Some sections are still under construction. Try it out. I want to hear from the PC people if it actually is downloading correctly.
You're singling us out.
Well, it's just I can't really help you. Oh, but if you have server connection, BrainBox or something, then skip the installation part and just start doing the FSL things.
Do you ever do